This is my Ashiok Blink Mail deck. We'll start off with the Ashiok cards. We have Ashiok Nightmare, 4 copies of Ashiok Nightmare Muse, 4 copies of Ashiok Sculptor Fears. We got 4 Into the Royal, 4 Poison the Cup. We got 2 Talarian Archmage. We got 2 Frost Trickster, 2 Massacre Worm, 2 Mind Flayer, 2 Mind Rack Harpy, 2 Shipwreck Dozer, 4 copies of Tessa Deep Dwelling, 2 Wall of Ruins, 2 Wolf Striders, and then for the lands we got 4 Dismal Backwater, 4 Evolving Wilds, 6 Islands, 6 Swamps, for a total of 60 cards. This is a combination of both the, Ashiok Sculptor Fears deck, with the escape mechanics and stuff, but upgraded with the Tassa, Blink deck strategy. So it's 2 decks combined. So we have both the Tassa Blink strategy engine. Now we have the Ashiok stuff. Now originally I was only using the Sculptor Fears, but I found this Ashiok, and this makes a token. It's like, and I was trying to look for a battle card that makes a token, which I did find one, to blink it with Tassa Deep Dwelling, so I can, create tokens. That way I have some type of engine to create attackers, create blockers, attackers, value engine, right? But that requires, the battle card, the creature plus Tassa on the field at the same time to get the value out of it. Because I already have a token generator, which is this one. Wolf Strider is already a token generator. So I do already combine this with this. The thing is, the tokens are better. They're 0/1, so they're good for blocking but not attacking, right? So I need something. So I needed a way to make tokens to attack with, right? Or at least to be able to block and kill something by blocking, right? Something the tokens don't, the sheep tokens don't do. But interesting. But I found out that this Ashiok has a +1 ability that lets you create a 2/3 blue and black nightmare creature token with the ability whenever this creature attacks or blocks. Notice those 2 important details, right? Each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of their library. So this adds to the mill aspect, right? Instead of milling the cards, the 2 cards you're warping them. You're exiling them instead, which is great, because it's good in case you go up against a graveyard deck. You don't want to, mill per se. You don't want their good cards going to their graveyard, because then they can use it from the graveyard. You rather exile them, right? So this is good. You get this out and you can start exiling. And the interesting thing about this card is that it costs 5 to play, just like Tassa costs. Well, Tassa costs 4 to play. So what's the card that costs 5? Just thinking of. A little confused. I think I took the card out, right? Oh, but this costs 5 to play. Okay, so that was Mind Flayer. Taking my opponent's creatures, similar to me creating something. But I want to be able to create my own army, as it were, because sometimes opponent tends to create a lot of tokens, or they have a lot of monsters or something. So I just needed some way to create attackers, because instead of, because I can't always pay to put attackers as it, right? So I just wanted something extra. And then since this is an Ashiok deck, it was nice that there was another Ashiok I could put in the deck. So we have the Nightmare, and like I said, it makes a token. Then it has an effect that helps with the milling aspect of the deck. So it's just out of synergy. So that's good. That's the main reason I have this Ashiok. It does have 2 other abilities, which is the -3 ability, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, then that player exile a card from the hand. Which is decent. It's definitely an effect you can use right there and then in case there's a there's something you need to deal with, like there's a problem. So it So it's nice that it's a removal card in case there's a really strong creature, and if you don't get rid of it, your opponent will beat you with it, right? And let's say it has trample or something, so there's no point in making a token, trying to use the token to block, right? You'd rather just bounce the creature back to your opponent's hand, and hopefully, and of course, it would be a good idea. It doesn't have haste, so it can't attack, and you take advantage of the summoning sequence aspect of the game. So there's two ways to defend yourself with this card, right? Bounce a creature back to your opponent's hand. The fact that this does non-land permanent, this can help you get rid of your opponent's planeswalker, enchantments, maybe artifacts that might be in play, that might be a palm. And of course, creatures is the most common thing you use this against. But then, like I said, +1 ability to make tokens, and they're relatively strong. They're 2/3, so they have 2 power, 3 toughness, which is decent stats. The other card I wanted to use creates 3/2 tokens, so a little bit stronger on the attack part. But in order to get the most out of it, to be able to use it every turn, I would have to combine it with Tassa. It's still a potential option because I could change the deck to incorporate that card, so that way I have more than one way of generating tokens. But I'm going this route because this is just one card that creates tokens, while Tassa and the other card, requires a lot of mana in order to use those cards. So, and I have to, get those 2 cards. If I open up with an Ashiok Nightmare Muse, I automatically have the ability, right? So there's that. And then this has the -7 ability. You may cast up to 3 face-up cards your opponent owns from their exile without paying the cost. So it's a nice ultimate. Because if you did this effect, the effect of this card at least twice, and you have up to 6 cards you can choose from to play up to 3 of them. And hopefully they're creatures, so that we can play up to 3 big strong creatures, and be able to beat your opponent with their own power. Similar to the Ashiok Sculptor of Fears, because it has a -5 effect, where you can put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So I have stolen some really good creatures with this from my opponent's graveyard from all my milling effects. So this is one way I can get something big and strong and powerful and beat my opponent with some something that they have. Preferably something with lifelink, so that way if I lost a lot of life, I can get that I can start getting that life back and stay in the game longer and increase my chances of winning, right? Not losing all my life. It has the +2 ability, so it gets 2 loyalty counters. Draw a card, and then each player sends the top 2 cards of their library to the graveyard. So this will make your opponent mill, make you mill, and of course you milling yourself helps you with your escape effects, which we'll get to soon. Then it has the -11 ability. Gain control of all creatures target opponent controls. So it's a really powerful ultimate. You can literally, take all your opponent's creatures and beat them with it. Especially if your opponent created a lot of tokens, they use this ability to take all their tokens. You can beat them down with their own tokens. So there's that. Into the Royal. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so you can bounce anything. Artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, which is what I always try to keep in mind, and creatures. And it's an instance, so you can play on either player's turn. And if you kick it, it has a kicker cost. If you pay the kicker cost, you get to draw a card on top of that. So this is good, like late game where you have a lot of mana and don't have much to you don't have much to do with them with the mana. You can just pump it into this and get rid of something that's a problem and gain and get a card to replace it. So which is always good. Another cool thing about this is, like, let's say your opponent's close to ultimate, using the ultimate. They're like one turn away from using the ultimate of their planeswalker. Use this to bounce their planeswalker back to their hand, and now they have to restart. So it's a good way to counter a planeswalker. ultimate. Instead of wasting attacks trying to knock off markers, just play this and just reset the whole entire planeswalker. Just bounce it back to the hand, which means they have to pay to play it again, and have to start giving it the loyalty counters again. So you set them back just by doing that. Because a lot of times I notice people will like send attacks towards the planeswalker, but if you use cards like this that return a non-land permanent to the owner's hand, that's a better way to deal with planeswalkers than to just waste valuable attacks on them. You want always your attacks to be at your opponent. Sometimes you want to kill your opponent's creatures, but that's what blocking's for. But definitely don't want to waste valuable attacks on a planeswalker. Poison the Cup is an instant, black instant. Destroy target creature. If this spell was foretold, scry 2. Foretell. 1 black, 1 of anything. During your turn, you may pay 2 of any color and exile this card from your hand face down. Cast it on a later turn for its foretell cost. Okay, so that's cool. This effect is new to me. Alright, so you pay 2, put it face down. Oh damn, this is so funny because I remember doing this before, but it wasn't this effect. It's because so a little story from my younger years. I remember there was a time where I don't know where we got this rule from, this idea from. I think it was a ruling about like how you could pay mana, right? Tap, pay mana, have mana floating, and then wait for the right time to use that mana, and then pay for something. Like you don't have to pay for an instant right there and then. You can save the mana and like go into your battle phase or something, and you'll still have the mana because like the mana won't disappear. Eventually, they made rules where the mana does disappear when you move from phase to phase, but there was a time where the mana stays all the way until the end of your turn, and then you get mana burn. That's when it was still mana burn, still a thing. Anyway, so you can pay for a card and not use it right then and there, or some weird shit like that. And we got this idea that's like, okay, I could pay to play, tap 2 blue for a counter spell, right? Put the counter spell face down on the field, right? And I can use it at any given time, right? And we kept doing that. Like every turn, we will pay and play a card face down, especially if it was an instant, and save it. And we were literally, technically, we're setting traps. Kind of a concept from Yugioh, setting traps. So we're literally setting these instances, and that's how we were playing them. Ironically, now we have a term for it. It's called the foretell, right? So now that's why it's funny. It's like, wait, I've done this before. It was the wrong thing to do. That's not how you play instances, but that's what we did back in the day. It was, it's funny. It was a cute idea. There was a lot of things we did wrong back in the day, but then eventually I got a rule book and learned how to play the game the right way. Anyway, back to this. Because it's interesting. It's like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, I could pay 2 and put it face down, and then play it later for 2. The cool thing is, yeah, on turn 2, I could pay 2 and put this face down. And then later on, when I need it, I could pay 2. Oh, this is so good. I love that. And I scry 2. Ooh, the synergy. See, this is just a replacement. The only reason I have this card here is a replacement for Murder, because Murder, I can use Murder on MTG Arena, but in regular standard, Murder is not legal. So, but Poison the Cup is legal in standard. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to use Poison the Cup as a replacement for it because it's the same cost. And it does pretty much the same thing, but it has an extra ability. Now I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my god, this is way better than Murder. I'd rather play this than Murder, period. Because I could play this for cheap, you know what I mean? I could play this for 2. So all I have to do is set it up on turn 2, pay 2 to put it face down, and then save it for later. And if for some reason I never get to 3 mana, or I don't have the 2 black mana I need to play this, right? 2 black mana instead of 1 colors. I just pay 1 black, 1 colors, and bang, foretell it. I can play it for 1 less black mana later on when I need it. Because clearly you're not going to use this, early game. You're going to use this late game. So, great card. I approve. Sorry, I approve. Moving on. So we got Baron. Tolarian Archmage, legendary creature. When a Baron Tolarian Archmage enters the battlefield, return up to one other target creature or planeswalker, which is important that it says that, right, to his owner's hand. So that's nice. So definitely got to play this because it hits planeswalkers as well as creatures. So very useful. And it's an enter the battlefield effect, so obviously we'll blink it to use it over and over again. And then it has at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent was put into your hand from the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So it could be a draw engine. Use it with certain cards. Yeah. You know what would be cool to play with this, right? Would be something that has flash. I used to have a card that had flash. Well, yeah, this would have had great synergy with that. Yeah. Because I would have played this, blinked this to get its effect. It would have bounced. Well, I don't think it. I think I have to do the play this, bounce to my hand, and then during the end phase, play. You know, get this effect to draw. Then on my opponent's turn, play the. Well, it depends how they rule this, but I'm just thinking of like bouncing something back to my hand. Play on my opponent's turn for flash, and then every turn just use the Baron to bounce that card back to my hand and flash it. I don't have the card. It's a dragon turtle. It's the one I'm thinking of, but I took it out the deck, and so I'm using Baron instead. Not using it, but the could have created a draw engine. But I'm not trying to draw because that gets me closer to decking myself out. Then we have 2 copies of Frost Trickster. Has flying 2/2. This is just a upgraded version of Frost Links, LYNX, Frost Links, or Link. I think it's a K, LLNNK, Frost Link. Anyway, the point is this is an upgraded version. It's the same stats, same abilities as the Frost Link, but it has flying, and that's the only difference. So it's the same thing. When it comes into play, tap target creature an opponent controls and that creature doesn't untap during the controller's next untap phase. So this helps me tap down and make certain cards useless. Tapping them down is useful because it means I can attack and they can't be used to block on that turn. And then there's the fact that they can't be used to attack me back next turn. So it's kind of like a reusable pacifist, basically, right? You know, the creature can't attack because it's tapped, and it can't block because it's tapped, right? So basically, it's like a pacifist on legs, as they say. And combining this with Tessa, I can blink it and use it every turn and just keep something really, really strong and really problematic tap down. Some creatures have the ability that when they attack, they do stuff like make tokens and stuff. I've dealt with that a couple times. There's like a 4/4, I think it was. Or was it 1/4? So no, I think it is a 4/4. It's a 4/4 white creature that when it attacks, it creates 2 1/1 tokens, and those tokens are attacking at the same time. And it's like, hey, that's 3 attacks off of 1 card. That's potential 6 damage off of 1 card. So keeping it tapped down comes in handy. If this had flash and flying, so good. Be busted. We'll see what the future has if we have any upgraded versions of that card. Alright, so Massacre Worm, of course. It's a 6/5 worm, 6-drop. When it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponent controls get -2/-2 until end of turn. The most important part is the -2 toughness part of the effect, because this could help you in many ways clear boards. So this can help you with board wipe. Then you combine this with Deep Dwelling. For 1 turn, you'll get this strategy where you play your Massacre Worm, get its -2/-2 ability. Then at the end of your turn, Tessa triggers, blinking this, and then you do it the -2/-2 again, which means all your opponent's creatures have their power and their toughness -4 instead, and then the typical stuff they usually get KO'd. And then whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, that player loses 2 life, which is really, really useful, of course. So this in itself can be a win con, or at least get you closer to winning through battle, and it's a 6/5, so can't go wrong with that. And of course, we could get it out through Ashiok Sculptors of Fears, a -5 ability. So that's an option instead of paying 6. But a lot of times I've actually every time I played it, it's always been from my hand. It's rare for me to play it from my graveyard. I always played it from my hand. So. And I always did have Dweller. I mean, Passa, so always did get that board wipe and the burn. Alright, Mind Flayer. It's a 5-drop. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long as you control Mind Flayer. So this is useful. So of course I played this, steal something from my opponent. And use it defensively, offensively. Also, a couple times I combine Mind Flayer's ability. Of course, with Tassa, so I can keep using it over and to steal my opponent's creatures. But one of the things I would do is, use their creature to, like, let's say I attack with their creature, and then I would use Boost Rider's effect to sacrifice another creature to scry 1, right? So I would sacrifice the creature, my opponent's creature, after I attack with it, to Boost Rider, scry the top card of my deck, especially if I need to, scry to try to get to mana or a playable card or something, and then use Tassa's ability to remove, to blink Mind Flayer, and then steal another one of my opponent's creatures. So this is a way I could slowly kill my opponent's creatures, especially if they have creatures that have like indestructible. I use this to steal the indestructible, attack with it, right? Try to attack with it, block with it, try to get some value out of it, and then sacrifice it to Boost Rider, so that way I can get rid of it, and then just play, blink Mind Flayer and take something else. And then there's a little removal engine, a way to cut down your opponent's board little by little through that synergy. So there's that. Then we have Mind Rack Harpy. It's an enchantment creature. It's a 3/2 flyer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each player puts the top 3 cards of their library to the drop area. So this is our main mill card. So we use this to mill the most. It's always awesome to get this out there and get the milling going, because that definitely interrupts your opponent's ability to play. Even if you don't mill your opponent out, and I have milled my opponent out. So I have one through milling out my opponent. But a lot of times this just helps me make it hard for my opponent to play, because a lot of times they'll mill and then they'll draw a land, right? And then I mill them some more and they draw another land, and they end up in a situation where they're not adding any playable cards to their hand, because a lot of their playable cards are getting milled instead. And if they're playing cards where they only have 1 or 2 copies of something, this can greatly hurt them, because if they're not playing 4 copies of everything, there's a higher chance you might mill the only copies of certain key cards that they need in that situation. So you drastically destroy your opponent's deck, especially if it's a combo deck and they need specific cards to combo off. This can drastically destroy that. So this mill is not just to mill for the potential of winning through decking out your opponent. It's also a control effect. You're using it to control your opponent. It'd be nice to have an ability that lets you manipulate the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, or at least more than the top 3, like manipulate the top 5, for example. That way you can deliberately mill what you want to mill, right? So that'd be kind of cool to have that type of effect to control the top cards of your opponent's deck and then mill. Because then you would just make sure all you let them have is land, and you mill everything else, right? So if they're always drawing lands instead of drawing something they could play. So we'll see. Maybe there's cards like that. I haven't found them yet, but there's probably cards like that will let me manipulate the top cards of my opponent's deck, which already alone would be strong, manipulating the top cards of my opponent's deck. Because I could, just by that effect alone, I could always guarantee that they're drawing lands, because I always put the lands on the top, and any playable card, you know, further away from them. So that alone would already be powerful. But then to add mill just makes it even more insulting, because that means they'll never get it. Alright, so Shipwreck Dozer has prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets a +1/+1 to end of turn, so it becomes a 4/4. If you play one, you know, instant or sorcery. And of course, this has the ability to grab an instant or sorcery from your graveyard and add it to your hand when it enters the battlefield. So this is how we're going to be able to reuse our Into the Royals, our Poison the Cup, definitely our Poison the Cup. Definitely want to be able to use that because you'll permanently get rid of threats, you know, problematic cards with this. Into the Royal, of course, can hit anything, including a Planeswalker, enchantment, stuff like that. That could always be helpful to reset somebody's, you know, enchantment or Planeswalker. It could be a problem. Plus, you can always do the kicker and draw if you want to have a drawing engine in that regards. You know, plus making the Doom, the Dozer, you know, a 4/4 for blocking or for attacking. Then we have Tassa, Deep Dwelling. It's an indestructible legendary enchantment creature. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Tessa isn't a creature. So you need 5 or more devotion to blue. So you need 5 or more. She already gives you 1, so you just need 4 more blue in order for her to become a creature, and then she'll be a 6/5 creature, which that's indestructible. She's already an indestructible enchantment when you play her. Then she has at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So that's how you blink these enter the battlefield cards and get their, you know, effects over and over and over again. So you can reuse them, get reusable values, always valuable. And then it has the pay 3/1 blue, tap another target creature. So this card alone has the ability to tap down a creature, especially if you tap down a creature on your opponent's turn. It helps you be defensive. So you can pay for and just tap down one of your opponent's creatures so that way they can't attack you. So sometimes I use that effect, and then I use her blink effect with Frost Trickster or Baron Talarian Archmage, and make it hard for them to attack me with 2 creatures. So I tend to slow them down that way. So there's options there. We have Wall of Ruins. It's a 0/4 1-drop defender, wall. And when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. So very useful. A lot of times you might have a 2-mana hand that you played, or if you prefer a 3-mana hand, but if you only manage to get a 2-mana hand, a 2-land hand, then going to definitely need at least a blue blue land to play the Wall of Ruins and try to scry. And of course, you can use Wall of Ruins with Tassa, right, in order to keep playing it over and over again. During your end phase, so you can scry 1 every turn, so you can manipulate the top card of the deck, so that we can choose to draw a land if you need a land to play something from your hand, or if you have a lot of land but have nothing to play, then you can use this to guarantee that the next card you draw is something you can play. Alright, so increases your chance. Woo Strider also does have the ability to scry 1, but you have to sacrifice another creature for it. Good thing when it enters the battlefield, it creates a 0/1 white gold creature token. So it already creates something you can use to sacrifice to scry for 1. So, something I do is I make the token first, use the token to block or declare it as a blocker, and before damage, I sacrifice it for Woo Strider's ability, so I can scry, so I increase my chances of drawing what I need, whether it's a land or a card to play on the following turn. But still be able to stop that attack, make that attack useless. And I definitely like doing that trick whenever I'm blocking something that has trample. So I'll block something that's trample with the token, then sacrifice a token for Woo Strider, so that way the combat is no longer valid, and I don't have to worry about taking any damage at all, and I survive that interaction. And this effect is not once per turn. You can sacrifice as many as you want to keep scrying. So you could look at the top card, put it at the bottom of your deck, then scry again, look at the top card, put it at the bottom of your deck if you need to until you get to something you want, right? That's why being able to create a lot of tokens will come in handy, because having Woo Strider in play, and then play Ashiok's Nightmare Muse, and keep doing the +1 ability to make a token, use the token to block an attack, but then sacrifice it for Woo Strider so I can scry, gives me a lot of deck control. So, which is always good, right? You want to control your opponent's deck in a negative way so it hurts them, but want to control your deck in a positive way so it benefits. And then this has the escape mechanic. You pay 3 of any color and 2 black. Exile 4 other cards in your graveyard, and in order to play this card from your graveyard. And then, of course, if you use the escape mechanic, you get 2. You put 2 +1/+1 counters on Woo Strider. So Woo Strider will become a 5/4, which is nice, right? A 5/4 plus. When it comes into play, you make the token, and you obviously have the scry ability. So you get a lot of value out of this card. And so definitely we take a lot of advantage of that card. It definitely has put in work for me a lot of times. I'm getting better at using it because I'm combining it with certain other cards. I'm getting a lot more synergy, a lot more use out of it. So our lands, Dismal Backwater obviously helps us with mana fixing, as they say. So just guarantee that I have blue or black mana whenever I need it. Plus, when it enters the battlefield, it comes into play tapped, and I gain a life. That life gain can make a huge difference. This is one of the first lands you want to play when you play. You play this first draw, gain a life, and that one life can make a huge difference. It could be the difference between losing and winning. So that's why we got 4 copies. Evolving Wilds. Even though I don't want my deck to be smaller than my opponent, because that risks the chances of me milling myself out, right? But you want to make sure that your mana is fixed properly, right? You want to make sure your mana is on point. And I use this in a lot of my decks because it helps me. This helps me thin out my deck in general. Like, it makes my deck go from a 60 card deck to, technically, if I use all 4 Evolving Wilds, into a 52 card deck. So it essentially works out. I mean, just using 1 Evolving Wilds, which typically tends to happen, I only use 1 in a game. That obviously that takes out 1 land out of the deck. So technically, it's like playing a 58 card deck as opposed to a 60 card deck. So obviously, this is the next card you want to play after Backwater, and then after that is just islands and swamps. You definitely want to a minimum of 2 water sources, 2 blue sources, and definitely want 3 black sources. So keep that in mind when you're charging your lands, because you're going to need the 3 black sources for Massacre Worm, which wouldn't be too hard because you're going to start off with Dismal Backwater, so you already have 1 black and 1 blue source, so you already have that. So then you just need 1 other water source, because that will help you out with cards that cost 2 blue, for example, like that one. This costs 2 blue. This costs 2 blue. So you see a lot of cards cost at least a minimum of 2 blue. So you want at least 2 blue and definitely want 3 black. So keep that in mind. And of course, island, swamp, basic stuff. And oh yeah, one last card that I forgot to mention. This earlier. We got 4 copies of Sleep of the Dead. Didn't notice it was all the way down there. We got 4 copies of Sleep of the Dead. It's another card that has Escape. It's a sorcery, so we can obviously get it back with Dozer. For 1 blue and a mana, you can play this card, tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So this is a 1 energy, Frost Trickster. So that's always good. Then it's the fact that it's reusable because we can use the escape mechanic where we pay 2 of any color in the blue, exile 3 other cards from our graveyard to play this card. And of course, you can only play this on your turn because it's a sorcery. So I always use this whenever I get the chance. The sooner I use it, the better. I definitely use this to try to help me stall long enough to get enough lands. You want to get at least up to 4 lands because most of your cards are 4 costs or less. Let's see the ratios. There's actually math up here. Your 3 drops is the highest. So you have a lot of 3 drops in the deck. So you want at least a minimum of 3 mana. You always want a 3 mana hand, but you definitely want to get to 4 mana because your main, at least your blink engine, is a lot of your creatures are 3 or less, and they have synergy with your Tassa, which is a 4 cost. So you definitely want to get up to 4 energy, mana, so you can land, so you can play your Tassa after you play stuff like your Woo Strider, which costs 3, your Frost Trickster, which costs 3, your Baron that costs 3, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Your Wall of Ruins, stuff like that, and these are the stuff you'll start trying to blink at first, and then of course later on you'll when you got 5, you can start doing stuff like Shipwreck Dozer to reuse your instances and sorceries, your Mind Flayer so you can steal your opponent's creatures, that kind of stuff. Definitely want to get your mill engine up and running to feed your escape, because remember your escape has to do with cards in your graveyard, so you can exile them. So you definitely want to fill up your graveyard. So you want to start your mill engine so that you can use your escape cards over again. So a lot of reusability in this deck, as you can tell and see, and a good synergy. And it's a blue black deck, so my favorite colors. The end of the video.